Welcome to the Crypto CEO show. We have Mohit Lalvani with us today. Lalvani, should I say? He's CEO, co-founder at HodlCC, 2x Fintech entrepreneur, previously co-founder at Lifquik, an angel investor for some time at Verifani. Deeply into crypto is Mohit. Moved from India to London not so long ago as a tech junkie, nonconformist. And yeah, he exited Quick Wallet some time ago. So we're going to talk about all that. This podcast is brought to you by Bitbars. Bitbars are taking advantage of block space as a commodity. We think that that has a high value and that most people are not taking advantage of that. So you can go to bitbars.xyz for more information with that. Mohit, welcome to the pod. Tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Wow. Okay. Don't know where to begin, but I'm originally from India. I got into tech. My first job was at a startup based out of IIT Bombay. It's actually a pretty successful company today. The first startup I worked for. And, a few years later, when I wanted to start up my own company, I ended up reaching out to the founders of the company that I worked for, the first company, and it was it was with their help that I managed to raise my first round, and then we raised a few rounds after that. But really, for me, the journey all began with the communication, right? Because our platform, the first startup I worked for, was a communication platform. So we basically would do it was a messaging platform similar to Twitter, but it worked on text messages. And I saw that shift taking place, like the consumer shift, the human behavior shift taking place from started with the people moving from SMS to BlackBerry, and then people moving from BlackBerry to smartphones, right? And like messaging would be all data, and everything would be data going forward. So I think I was at that point where the smartphone revolution was just starting, and also that was the genesis for my startup, right? It was that mobile transactions will start taking place to the mobile device more than cash and cards that were there at that time. And I think I saw that I sort of foresaw that, right, in some ways, that that this is how the journeys. This is how consumer behavior is going to evolve, right? And that's what actually led me to start up in building mobile payments. So in fact, fintech wasn't even a coined term back then, right? Fintech wasn't a recognized sector or anything as such. In fact, whenever I'd pitch Lifquik as a startup, we call it a mobile payments startup. And today it's easier to say it's a fintech company.
Right. And you built that one for 10 years. You had an exit.
I did 9 years. 9-year journey.
9 years. And you had an exit on that one. So how many clients did you get by the end, and how was the exit process?
Oh, it was a crazy exit process because my company, the company went through a crazy journey. So in 2018, Future Group, which is India's second largest retail conglomerate, India's second largest retail conglomerate, they bought a majority stake in Lifquik, and we became like the fintech arm of the group, right? And being the fintech arm of a group meant of a large retail conglomerate meant that we were basically executing on various pieces of fintech, right? From starting with loyalty and payments, to gift cards, to point of sale payments, to remittances. So fintech as a sector has so many subsectors in it, right? So we were like the fintech arm of a large group, and the company became profitable. The team grew. We were at the peak. I think we were about 70 people, team size. Profitable, growing very quickly. I think. And what happened was the pandemic sort of hit, right? And with our majority shareholder, Future Group, Amazon was a shareholder in them, and they decided to go and merge with India's largest retailer, which is Reliance Group. And basically, the whole merger between Reliance and Future Group ended up in the courts, in arbitration in Singapore and in the Supreme Court of India, because Amazon objected to, Amazon had a right of first refusal, in their shareholders agreement when they signed, but they decided to go and merge with one of the competitors that was exclusively in the list. So that created a lot of problems because we were part of them, and they're going to be acquired by Reliance, and we have no idea what's going to happen to us. But luckily, at that point, I decided to sort of explore an independent journey, and we did something called a share forfeiture. So when shares are partly paid up, you can claw back the shareholding of the shareholder who's not sort of being able to pay up the full amount. And obviously, they were in a crisis situation, so it was an amicable discussion with them, saying, "Hey, look, we don't know, you all don't know what's happening at your end because of all this litigation that's taking place, and it's better that we explore an independent journey." And we forfeited the shareholding. We took back control of the board, and that's when I ran an M&A process to go and sell Lifquik. And we had term sheets from, I think, some of the best companies out there. We had a term sheet from Revolut, we had a term sheet from Razorpay. A bunch of companies wanted to buy us. And eventually we decided to merge with M2P Fintech. M2P is backed by Tiger Global and Insight Partners. They're one of the largest fintech infrastructure companies in India today. They power a lot of banks. They power a lot of other fintech companies, large fintech companies. That's how the journey sort of ended up.
It's quite an interesting journey. Tell me about Hodl itself. It seems like it does a lot of things, right? So you shop with crypto, you pay later, and you hold on your crypto. So is that like a newish model? Because I've seen a lot of these apps in US, but in India, is that like trendy nowadays? And tell me about the fintech and crypto market in India.
Sure. So I think HodlCC is actually not geared towards the Indian audience. It's more focused on
UK.
customers from UK and Europe to start with, and eventually the US. But just to give you some idea why I built HodlCC, why I started building HodlCC. So when I first moved to the UK, I couldn't get credit, right? Because obviously I'm new to the country. I don't have a job. And I wasn't going to get a job. I was going to start another company. Now, obviously, no one's going to give me, like, no bank or no lender would give me a credit card or would give me credit, right? And it's actually Bitcoin that saved me when banks failed me, right? Because I ended up using Bitcoin to borrow pounds against my Bitcoin because I needed the liquidity, right? And obviously, there were all sorts of compliance and tax issues with me having to move my own personal money from the bank accounts in India, because India as a country has capital controls, one, and two, they want to know why you're moving the money, for what reason, all sorts of things, right? And from my perspective, a lot of those things didn't sit well with me. Like, why do I need to go through so much process just to move my own money, right? And luckily, I had some Bitcoin on me, and that was like really easy. It took me a total of 15 minutes, from moving the Bitcoin to my wallet in the UK to taking out a loan and moving the pounds into my bank account. It was 15 minutes, and I had money in my bank account, and the source was Bitcoin, right? And that's it. And then I remember when I was trying to use a very popular buy now pay later service called Klarna in the UK. Initially, they wouldn't underwrite me, right? When I try to get so what Klarna does is they do interest-free loans. So say you want to buy a TV, right? That's 300 pounds. Okay. Now I can pay for it 100 pounds a month into 3 months, interest-free. And how Klarna makes their money is they get a cut, they get a commission from the merchant, right? So that's what essentially I mean, that was very interesting to me because initially when I tried using Klarna, when I didn't have a credit score or credit history, or I didn't have any money in my bank account, right? In my UK bank account, they wouldn't underwrite me. They wouldn't give me a loan. I wouldn't be able to buy anything on the platform. But once I moved money that was collateralized by Bitcoin, basically I'd taken out a loan against a Bitcoin, and I got pounds in my account. And once I had the pounds in my account, boom, right? Klarna starts underwriting me for everything. So I realized that, okay, I'm using 3 different services to do one thing. I just want to buy like a TV and I want to pay for it over time, right? But I'm using 3 different services. I'm using Klarna, to buy it, and I'm using a Bitcoin loan app to take out a loan against a Bitcoin, and I'm using my UK bank account to move the money in there and to be able to complete this whole transaction. So I realized, there should be a simpler way for people to do this. And that's what HodlCC is. You can simply collateralize a crypto, get a credit line against it, and just that's it, go and shop.
It's brand new, Huddle. And how many clients do you have so far? Because you launched it last year, I believe. And what are your growth tactics to get more clients?
Oh, so right now we're still in like a MVP phase. We're not fully live, right? So it's just like the website. You can make a purchase, but it's very limited. We've put a lot of controls on the platform right now. So it's very early days. Yeah. We actually just went through an accelerator program in Silicon Valley. So I was actually in the Bay Area for 3 months, from November to January, to the end of January. So I spent the last 3 months. I've just been in India now for over 2 weeks. So I was in California, actually to the end of Feb. Sorry, not till mid Feb. I was in California and New York. And yeah, I've just come back to India. So we went through this accelerator program. We're making a lot of changes now to the platform, like upgrading the platform. Lots of more features coming in. And more importantly, I think in the accelerator program, because I'm not a Web3 person. So, what the program that we attended in Silicon Valley was by Tim Draper. So Tim Draper's got this Draper University. And they had a partnership with the crypto blockchain called Stellar. So we decided I wanted to learn more about Web3, and that's what sort of led me to apply to the accelerator. And then we went through it. Yeah, and I think one of the key things that came out of there is that in our business model, we need liquidity, right, to be able to underwrite the interest-free loans that consumers take, right? So for that liquidity, we've decided to actually launch our own stablecoin. It's a US dollar stablecoin, and that actually works very well for us because that solves our liquidity problem, 1, and 2, we realized that this could be a standalone product in itself. For example, the US dollar has the Indian rupee has depreciated about 15 to 20% compared to the US dollar just over the last 3 years, right? Now, even if you have certain stock, even if your Indian rupees are invested in the stock market, and the stock market is grown by, say you've grown your investment by 20%, you really haven't made any money because it's depreciated against the dollar by 20%. So
And cost of life has increased.
correct. So we're building an easy way for anyone in the world, and especially Indians, to hold US dollars, and they can choose the risk level, right? So if they want no risk, they'll get what the treasury yields are. So the lowest amount should be like about 4%, and they can choose a low risk or a medium risk or a high risk strategy, and we basically deploy their money using our own stablecoin into a lot of DeFi protocols to generate yield.
Sure. There's so many stable coins though. Like, why would they buy yours precisely?
Because we're focused purely on enabling you to generate yield and hold your stablecoin, or hold it as an investment. Most other stablecoins are focused on payments or remittances or various other use cases, right? I think our use case is purely enabling people to hold their dollars and generate yield on it.
And do you think that USD will hold up with everything that's happening right now in the US?
I think the US is the strongest economy in the world, right? And I think that all the changes taking place in the US right now are for the better, right? Um, being an entrepreneur and a businessman myself, especially my last business that I ran was in India. It was a 9-year journey. We were regulated by the Reserve Bank of India, um, and we interact with a lot of other government departments, like for example, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, the Ministry of Finance. So everybody wants to come and put some regulation onto you as a company, and you when being on the outside there and seeing what's happening in the US with the Department of Government Efficiency, right? If something like that were to come into India, like it could actually change a lot of things, right? Because in India, a government job is considered, like a very safe job,
High
because one,
pays,
you never get
corruption.
fired.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I think from that perspective, I think it's going to only unlock more business opportunities. It's only going to unlock more growth in the long term. Fine, in the short term, you'll have you'll have some readjustment, repricing of things, but it sets you up for the long term, is what I believe.
Right. And why do you think the world has waited so much to have Doges, for example? Why do you think that is not the case in other countries? Is that because bureaucrats just thrive on that, and most of the
Absolutely,
countries' economy is dependent on this?
absolutely. So look, if you look at it, you know, no matter how you could elect the best leader, right? But if a leader's ideas and are not implemented, right, or his actions that he wants to implement. So, for example, the people voted for certain things, right? In the elections, the leader promised that, hey, I will achieve 1, 2, 3, right? People bought that story. They voted for that. They voted for the leader. Now, if he can't implement it because of the bureaucracy involved, then what's the point of elections and what's the point of a leadership, right? So there needs to be a shake-up, right? And I think the other good thing is that we have the blockchain technology that came about, right, because of Bitcoin, um, and that just makes things open and more transparent. Um, yeah, and I think if there's nothing stopping us if to take back power from these people. For like I firmly believe that the power they take from the people will always return to the people. The people always figure out ways to make things better, right? Society always figures out ways to make things better and cheaper and more affordable, right?
Do you think there's gold in Fort Knox?
Oh, I have no idea about gold in Fort Knox. I haven't been following that too much. I know that there's some controversy going on about whether gold exists or not, and why are we not allowed to go there and see it. Um, so yeah, hopefully, maybe I mean, I hope that the world is honest and not that corrupt. Because if the gold is not there, then that's not very good for a lot of for the whole world, I would say, right?
Yeah. Well, why we're not allowed? I think that's an obvious answer, right? Like
Oh,
people
obviously, but
would
I mean,
abuse,
with the right
but
permits, or I mean, why can't the president go and visit Fort Knox, right? I mean, that should be allowed. He's the president of the country.
I wouldn't let Trump go in there though. But yeah, I think yeah, generally speaking, there's like secrets behind closed doors, right? It's just like banks not informing customers in writing fine prints because they don't want a bank run, like it happened with Silicon Valley. If
Right.
everyone would panic and pull out at the same time, it would just be bad for everyone. So yeah, like most humans, it's still like give them what they want, right, and not really what they need because most humans are not ready for the truth. So yeah, it would be an interesting question. What do you think of U.S. U.S. move to switch to, or not switch, but have BTC in the Federal Reserve?
I think it's amazing, right? Um, like if you look at the history of paper paper money and the U.S. dollar, when 1971, when Richard Nixon said that you can no longer redeem gold for the U.S. dollar, and you have to go and deposit your gold with the Federal Reserve. Um, I think things like these are, I believe, a government overreach. It shouldn't be allowed, right? Um, and I think Bitcoin brings that freedom. What I'm worried about is tomorrow something similar to this coming up, right? Where saying that, hey, if you hold Bitcoin offline in a wallet, you have to come and declare it to the government of the United States or whatever it is, right? For that matter. And but like I said, there's going to be good things and bad things that come out of everything that takes place in the world generally. Also, if you look at it, right? Um, so there might be positives with the Bitcoin strategic reserve, and there might be some negatives too. Um, but overall, I think it's a net positive because at least the world has acknowledged that this fiat debt system that we've been living in is probably not correct, and it basically rewards a handful of people, right, who are sort of close to the banks. I mean, if you look at India, it's an oligarchy, right? Essentially, you have two big families that control half the business, most of the businesses in India. So, I think with nations, starting with the US adopting Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, the transparency will go up significantly, right? And overall, I think it's a net positive.
Right. What's next for you? What are your goals for this year?
Oh, goals for this year is to get this startup funded, take take it off, get it take off the ground. We're still very early days, very small team. Yeah, that's the focus for this year.
And where can people find out more about you, Mohit?
LinkedIn, Twitter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I guess they can search your full name there. So Mohit Lalvani, and
Yes.
yeah, your new company HodlCC. So that was Mohit and Charles for another